Welcome back. As we celebrate National Journalist Day this year, the spotlight is on a timely and critical theme, new journalism era, balancing AI and ethics. With artificial intelligence transforming the way news is produced, distributed and consumed, questions around editorial independence, accuracy and public trust are more urgent than ever. How do we balance innovation with integrity? And what does the future hold for journalism in Malaysia and, of course, also beyond? Now, joining us today is someone at the forefront of these discussions, WATHSHLAH NAIDU, Executive Director of the Centre for Independent Journalism. Thank you for being with us, WATHSHLAH, even though you're in Jakarta. Now, I'd like to start with this. In your view, how do existing ethical guidelines need to evolve in this new AI-driven media era? Let's start with this.
Hi, Melissa. Thank you. I think we all know that existing media guidelines were developed at a time where it was really the human judgment which was central to news production. Today, AI influences not just how stories are sourced, like how do you do the research, but it's not just about production. It really has gone into distribution, influencing distribution, kind of influencing consumer behavior, so how news is also consumed. So the guidelines then, I think any kind of ethical guidelines will really need to evolve to address the related challenges that comes with AI use, especially in the context of generative AI as well. So it has to address transparency, it has to address accountability for automated decision making. And most importantly, I think the guidelines or any kind of ethical consideration will have to ensure that human oversight is still the center of any AI use, basically, because we must always maintain the trust in media and to ensure fairness and accuracy. And then especially in a country like Malaysia, where we must contextualize any kind of ethical framework within our very, very diverse society. We must avoid any kind of algorithmic biases that may, somewhat even reinforce all the existing societal divides that we continue to experience.
Now, there are growing concerns that AI may reinforce biases or amplify certain narratives. Now, how can editorial independence be preserved? You spoke about algorithms, and when can these algorithms increasingly influence what gets published and promoted?
Yeah, I think we first of all need to really understand and treat AI as a tool. AI is not the decision maker, all right? So editorial independence then must not be outsourced to algorithm. Because we also need to understand we are really not the developers of these tools, right? We are adapting the technology. The technology very often belongs to the global north. Hence, it already comes with its own global north biases. So I think it's critical to maintain independence, editorial independence. Then media outlets or organization must really have very clear guidelines on how they audit their AI system. You need to be able to have systems in place to detect biases. You need to also have like a really good diverse editorial teams who then counter algorithmic echo chambers. And of course, media will also have to invest in literacy, not just for their journalists, but also the public. Because unchecked algorithmic powers can really, what we are already seeing, erode pluralism, and it needs to be managed very, very responsibility. And media must be held to a higher level of accountability because they are the truth tellers.
And how can we rebuild or sustain public trust in journalism today, especially when audiences struggle to distinguish real from fake in an AI-influenced media environment? And personally, I've been also a victim of being used by AI, using fake news, delivering fake news while I was news presenting. And, some people may not be able to differentiate that, and that was published on TikTok and also on the Facebook. So I was personally a victim, but I reported it. So perhaps just give us some thoughts on this.
And I want to flip it a little bit, right? I think most importantly, we should always remind ourselves journalists and the role of journalism, it's about needing to reaffirm the commitments to public interest, right? So, you're right in the sense where there is already trust in media. There's a trust deficit. It has fluctuated due to all kinds of interference, sensationalism, and trustworthy journalism, whether, it's human written or AI assisted, must already be rooted in independence, evidence, and ethical intent, right? Then you throw in the use of technology, AI, Gen AI, deep fakes that are the synthetic media. So to deal with this, and it requires a lot of rebuilding trust. There has to be proactive measures. So it's not just about punishing recalcitrant media or media that's producing synthetic media, deep fakes, and so on. But how do we then ensure that the media have transparent labeling of AI generated content? And I think that's very critical. Often we don't see that. We also need stronger fact-checking mechanisms. We need to learn how to fact-check. We need a thinking society. And also, in many instances, there has to be very prompt and proactive corrections, for example, when mistakes happen. So these are all the different stepping stones that media can put in place proactively in how they use AI. And again, I want to stress that AI is not being just used, or especially generative AI is not just being used to create content. There's a huge element of that goes into use of AI for marketing purposes, behavior analysis, that challenges and in fact directs consumer patterns. So all this requires a lot of ethical consideration by media organizations.
Ethical consideration. Should then Malaysia move towards a formal regulation or perhaps codes of conduct for AI use in journalism, or should this be left to professional self-regulation and also industry norms? Your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think a balanced approach is going to be very critical because it's important. Formal regulation would provide a very significant guardrail, say, to prevent misuse and also to always protect public interest, right? But let's face reality. To a large extent, media environment here is already facing extensive pressure. So we must be very careful that regulations are not designed to enable any kind of state censorship or even undermine media freedom. And I think it's also very timely that hopefully soon we're going to have the Malaysian Media Council established, and they can very well play a very, very transformative role because as an independent, self-regulatory body, which is, I mean, its core is to promote ethical journalism and uphold press standards, then the Media Council will be very, very well positioned then to lead the industry specific development of code of conduct for AI use in journalism. And this again, as I said, this code of conduct will be very critical because it can then set clear principles around transparency in AI assisted reporting. It can have in place editorial accountability mechanisms when using generative tools, but also set very clear standards for ethical curation and also how distribution is influenced by algorithm influenced content, right? And of course, if by housing these code of conduct or guidelines within the Media Council, we are then promoting journalistic autonomy because we are holding media organization accountable to a shared ethical framework, right? And it's developed by media organizations, media professionals, stakeholders, and it's collectively developed. And it's not something that is so top down, state imposed on them, right? And again, Media Council also serves as the forum to deal with disputes and complaints against media. This can then be used to also address public complaints, like how you were saying when you yourself experience these challenges, right? Where do you go then to lodge these complaints for a speedy resolution, right? So we don't want to take everything through punitive legal action or measure. So the Media Council will provide these mechanisms, right? So I think ultimately what I want to say is that the Media Council can really help us here in Malaysia, I think, to strike the right balance. We must protect freedom of expression, media freedom, while at the same time, of course, be very responsible and accountable in how we navigate the complexities of AI in journalism. And I always feel what is really needed is an independent media council with the right mandate, authority, and cross-sectoral multi-stakeholder representation.
So much passion when you speak about the Media Council and its role. Now, what role do you see Malaysia playing in setting regional or even global standards for ethical journalism in the age of AI and, of course, with the help of the Media Council?
Yeah, I think it's a perfect, unique opportunity, right? We are the chair of ASEAN this year, and seeing everything that's evolving both within our region but also globally, I think we can be a thought leader in developing media, AI media frameworks. But these would have to be grounded in democratic values and also be able to be adapted to multicultural sensitivity. So I think if Malaysia can take the step, and as I said, unique role as the chair of ASEAN to create a very inclusive, rights-based standard, we can then serve as a regional model. I mean, we're going to have the Media Council, we have the National AI Office, we have the Ministry of Communications, the Ministry of Digital. I think we have the mechanisms and the infrastructure. We just need to add the layer of always placing public interest at the center of what we are doing. And we would be a key leader within Southeast Asia. We can, and I strongly feel that Malaysia can contribute to meaningful discussions, not just within the region, even globally. And it's also very critical because we can then bring the voices and perspective of the global majority to these other global spaces, which are often dominated by big tech companies and global north perspective.
FAZLINA, so much to talk about, and we definitely need to invite you back to the studio to have a more in-depth analysis and to really share your perspectives on this again. But thank you again for saying yes for today's show. Happy National Journalist Day to you, and of course to all our journalists out there as well.
Yes, looking forward to Havana, and next week there's also another World Press Freedom Day celebration here in Malaysia.
Thank you. Have a nice day.